It's Ronnie O'Sullivan against Shaun Murphy over the best of 21 frames for the Shanghai Masters title. Two players posing for a few photographs. And I think, although Murphy has only beaten O'Sullivan 3 times in 14 attempts, that victory in particular in the Champion of Champions over this sort of distance, best of 19, in one of the biggest invitationals in the world, just proved to Murphy, as much as anything else, that he could beat O'Sullivan over that sort of distance, having not managed to do so previously. And that has got to stand him in good stead today, you would think, as he looks to repeat that trick. But O'Sullivan came on strong in the second session, Neil, against Robertson. Yes, we know that the Aussie was unlucky with his tip, no doubt about that, but finished with a 134 break, scored heavily again.
Yeah, well, it's typical O'Sullivan. He saw an opening and he took advantage of it. But I thought early on in that match, Neil Robertson was scoring more heavily. Ronnie was hanging on, winning close frames, because that's what he has to do now, I suppose, on occasions. But if you hadn't seen snooker before, and I was having a discussion with David Hendon, our fellow commentator, last night, and indeed Joe Johnson, we were all there, and saying that if you hadn't really seen much snooker before, you would give Murphy an outstanding chance here, wouldn't you? Because he looks to be playing as well as anybody right now. But it's the O'Sullivan factor, which is he's fallen foul of before, which might be the reason he doesn't win. So it's a fascinating game, you know. If you can put everything that's gone before away, then this could go all the way, this match, I think, because Murphy's playing very nicely again.
Such a contrast, of course, from last season when he suffered 9 first-round exits, Murphy. That threatened his top 16 place. He needed that run to the final of the International Championship in order to preserve his status amongst the elite, but now very much upwardly mobile again. His second consecutive major final here in China. And O'Sullivan described him as the best player this season so far. Of course, Trump beat Murphy handsomely in that final in Daqing.
Well, I think there's always an element of somebody just taking the pressure off themselves saying that. You know, there's an argument that he's not quite the best player of the season, but by the same token, Ronnie isn't far wrong. He's been playing some good stuff, and we're talking about a winner of the Triple Crown here, so he's not like just somebody who's in a bit of form. He's, class is permanent in all of those remarks. It's a long match, isn't it? This 21-frame match, 10 frames in this session. Interestingly, the mid-session interval, by definition, should be after 5, shouldn't it? If there's 10, but it's not. So old habits die hard. We've got 4 frames, then they're followed by 6, but for no obvious reason.
O'Sullivan hasn't always been at his best this week. He needed a bit of help from Kyron Wilson, who outplayed him in the first half of their match. Of course, recovered from a very precarious 5-1 behind to win in the decider. But I think that's one of the things that's pleased O'Sullivan in recent times, that he's shown he can scrap to victory when he's not flowing, as we know he can.
7.
As he said ahead of this final, when you're playing well, this game's easy, but when you are struggling a bit, you've got to dig deep, and that's what he's been able to do, not only in this tournament, but in the last couple of seasons when he's enjoyed so much success. 10 major titles in the last 2 campaigns.
I think he feels he's not on that red, actually, which is a great disappointment that he should have broken down so early. Seemed to be an awful lot of reds that he could land it on, but he's gone in between all of them. Yes, and his long game was a bit in and out yesterday. Potted a couple of important ones, but there were a few that went astray, and to be honest, I expected him to pot that. And it seems that he's left Shaun Murphy the sort of early chance he needs. These two have a mutual respect for each other on the table, but it's safe to say that they wouldn't have a lot in common off the table, I think. That's probably the fairest way of putting it. And I don't think either would particularly enjoy losing to the other one.
One.
It's not a needle match. I don't think it's quite as extreme as that, but anyone that's followed the games of the last years will probably know where I'm coming from on that score. They're very different personalities. Both great players.
Seven. Eight.
Something of a cueing shot here. And he's cueing well, like I said. I think we can expect a very entertaining match as well. The kind of snooker these
13.
two play. It's not so much all-out attack, but it's always very pleasing on the eye.
$14.
Black spot isn't free yet, but I think it could be made free. Certainly by moving this red that he's now about to play, the right-hand red, down the bottom, and that makes black available to the right corner, of course. And the red above it, if that's potted, then all of a sudden everything's out in the open. As you can see, the other reds all go there.
21. $27.
Well, there is possible plant in there, as you saw. He's not right behind it, so I don't think he'd want to play it yet. But it could be those two reds, as you can see, just below the pink, as we get that perfect camera angle, or a plant.
28. $35. $36.
He's a bit unlucky there. He hit a series of reds on the way through.
43.
He's cannoned 3 reds and not finished on anything. It can be dangerous when you know a match is a long match. We know this is an unusual trip, first to 11, to win it, but it doesn't mean you don't need a good start. Playing in the World Final over 35, you need a good start.
Shaun Murphy. 43.
So you can't be switched off early on. I'm not saying either player is, but I'm just making the point. You get off to a bad start and your opponent can run away with a session. So that's what we'll be looking to avoid.
One.
Cement. Tremendous pot from O'Sullivan from long range. Pretty close to the cushion, but it didn't affect him. Yes, and O'Sullivan is surely the best front runner the game has ever seen. Most of his triumphs down the years have come after he's got off to a quick start and gone on to dominate. Once he does get in front, it's very, very difficult to peg him back. It's happened. Mark Selby has done it a few times to him, but it's pretty rare for O'Sullivan to cough up a lead. He's appearing in his 105th professional final today and going for his 70th title, which would match Stephen Hendry's record.
He's fallen out of position there, a bit like the shot that Murphy had, actually. Just kissed a red incorrectly. No, you're absolutely right, Philip, that O'Sullivan very rarely gives up a big lead. We probably should mention one of the great comebacks made of the late Paul Hunter, much missed, wonderful snooker player in Masters final.
And O'Sullivan 12.
Was way in front, O'Sullivan, and Paul Hunter came back to beat him in the Masters final by the odd frame, something like 7-2, 7-3. Much missed talent.
Yes, Hunter had an incredible record at the Masters, didn't he? All three of his titles there came in a final frame decider. Well, that is a fabulous spot from Murphy, and a bit unlucky to get the cannon that he did on the black.
I think this first frame has been more a story of players getting out of position. There hasn't really been anything missed, has there? It's just
yellow ball.
For some reason, they haven't been able to get the cue ball under the control you'd expect. It's a good shot as well. Look at that. That could not have been played any better.
For one.
There's been nothing wrong with Murphy's tactical game this week, and he has made the point that practicing as he does in his relatively new home of Dublin with Fergal O'Brien has helped that facet of his game, which perhaps has been something of a weakness, comparatively speaking, in the past. O'Sullivan hits the reds, but has he left one here?
Well, Murphy has earned that chance because of the safety shot he played. And he's got a 25-point lead here, so he's not far away from getting over the line. And now he's got this far in this frame. He really needs to convert it, notch the frame up, and settle him. It's a much eagerly awaited match, this, Philip. We had messages today from people watching from New Zealand, Australia and London. It's important to understand the popularity of this game. You see a big event like the Shanghai Masters, and people from either hemisphere will enjoy this matchup. It's a long match, but Shaun Murphy will hope it shapes up pretty well in this first session. He needs to get into it. Doesn't need O'Sullivan to start pile driving in with break after break, which we know can happen.
Eight.
They've made 11 centuries between them during this tournament. O'Sullivan 6, Murphy 5.
That was very well cued. It really was. I mean, he was over the top of that red, but he still played it around 2 cushions very nicely. He doesn't want this to spot. It may be that he's still on one. He much preferred this pink to be on the black spot. 39 the lead. I think Murphy can get to that red. Yeah, he can. Of course, if the pink had have spotted, the other red would have been available. But in rolling the blue in, he'll be 45 in front with 43 on. I think Shaun Murphy has played a good frame here. Nothing spectacular, no centuries or anything. But if you analyse it, he's done very little wrong.
And it was that safety shot that had O'Sullivan in trouble, which has presented this opportunity to clinch
21.
the frame, which he's taken.
Green ball. Shaun Murphy, 21, in the frame.
Shaun Murphy is playing a pretty formidable all-round game at the start of this season, and he's made the ideal start against Ronnie O'Sullivan. A long way to go, but Murphy leads by